Hello, people. Another edition of the WaterBoys podcast for your ear holes. Julian McKenzie, Frank Pavan on the Zoom calls. We have yet to do a show in the studio together. I imagine when we eventually get to those days, if we even get to those days, the dynamic might be a little different. But I'll say this much: over Zoom calls, I look forward to these weekly Zoom calls with the buddy, Frank Pavan. So without further ado, Frank, say hello to the people.
Yeah, what's up, everyone? Episode 13 here on tap for you guys. Julian, I know that I think the best part about if we ever go back to studio is we won't have to fight over each other and then fight through the lag of the call. And
Oh my God. I can't, as someone who does, I mean, I have this show, I appear on the Other Sports podcast, I have the Hockey Inside Out show. I think I can count maybe like 20 times a week that just happens just on all these different calls and shows. It's the worst thing about all of this.
So it's that's probably the most difficult part about recording through Zoom. But then again, we're lucky to be doing something like this. And
yes,
we're very fortunate to be doing something like this.
Yes.
So just off the top, before we dive into things, just want to remind people, you can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. Leave a review, drop a comment if you feel like it. Could be constructive criticism, could be a good comment, whatever. Send us your love through whichever podcast listening app you prefer, and through YouTube as well, because our videos will be going up on YouTube shortly. Julian, though, how was your weekend?
I had a good weekend. I watched another episode of WandaVision on Disney Plus, so I've been enjoying that show. I know we'll get to it in a second. I tried to catch as much as I could of the Australian Open, tried to catch as much as I could of some NHL action as well.
Yep.
Just tried to keep busy, just tried to keep myself, entertained throughout this weekend as we continue to go through pandemic times. What about you, Frank?
This weekend was actually pretty nice for me. I can't complain. Did a few outdoor activities. The weather was nice. It wasn't too cold.
I saw on your IG story you were getting it in outside, and you were with your girl, right?
Yeah, I was with my girlfriend and a couple of her family members, just skating around a rink nearby, and it was just refreshing, to be outside and taking that fresh air instead of being stuck inside all the time. So it was really enjoyable, and hopefully do more of it before the winter's over. But one thing that I did to wrap up my weekend, which is sports related, is WatchMojo CEO, his name is Ashkan Karbis-Frushin, and he made a connection with former NFLer and current businessman, entrepreneur Braxton Miller. Of course, Braxton's probably better known.
Ohio State, right?
Ohio State, that's right. The quarterback went to the NFL and played with a few teams, Houston Texans being one of them. Anyways, ever since his NFL career,
that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah,
that's what I was trying to figure out, like which teams he played for.
There's a few. I don't want to misspeak here, but I know for sure one of them was Houston, and we actually had a clubhouse call with him, and I kind of coordinated it. I spoke with Braxton's representatives over in California, and I kind of had it set it up for Braxton to talk with Ashkan, and but I jumped on the call as well, and it was just interesting to hear how he's been transitioning from an athletic mindset to more of a business investing entrepreneur standpoint, and it was interesting to see someone who's made this transition in their life, because it's not easy for athletes who just here's one thing for fans of the show, and go back to our interview with Christian Covington of the now Cincinnati Bengals, but he actually played with Braxton Miller in Houston, and I brought up the question, Julian, of when we spoke to Christian about his time, what his ideas are for when he leaves the sport. And he spoke about how he wants to get into media and whatnot. And anyways, I brought it up to Braxton, and the fact that when you're a professional athlete, you get caught up with your entire CV, your resume is essentially being just all sports, and it could be a bit of I guess it could be discouraging for some of these guys, because all they've known and all they can say is that they've just been in the sports world, and now they want to get into different fields. It could be a bit of a huge jump, maybe discouraging at first. So I spoke to Braxton about that, and he said he just never tried to get down on himself that way, and always keep an open mind with new endeavors. So anyways, it was a refreshing talk. I hope that my path crosses Braxton's way again, and that's how I wrapped up my weekend. But I know we've got a huge jam-packed show for everyone, so let's get right into it. Julian, I think you want to start off with tennis.
Guys, First off, before I get into tennis, that sounded like a really cool call. But as someone with an Android phone, I am not allowed to be. I mean, we don't have an app for Clubhouse yet, so get on that Clubhouse. But let's get into it with tennis. The first major of the year is complete. The Australian Open, down under, as they say in Australia, I suppose. Novak Djokovic won on the men's side. It was obviously, one of the three living legends we have in the tennis world right now between him, Rafael Nadal, and Roger Federer. I believe Djokovic was dealing with like an oblique injury as well during the tournament. It almost looked like he couldn't play, and he ends up going to the final and he wins. But one player I want to focus on is Naomi Osaka, who won on the women's side. And I know she's only 23, and I know she's only won about a handful of Grand Slams, but I think it's important we give her flowers now, because I got to watch her play in the semifinals against Serena Williams. And I mean, she's been a star, but just watching her break down arguably the greatest tennis player we've ever seen in Serena Williams. Yes, she's older. Maybe there's talk about her kind of hanging it up after this, but it's still Serena freaking Williams in the semifinals. And I was just in awe of how, Serena has fought back from deficits before and tries to use energy to pump herself up. And that was one of those matches where we had the crowds in and whatnot. And you could see Serena was just thriving off the crowd and trying to use it to her advantage. And almost every opportunity she had to try to bring something up or try to just build herself up, Naomi Osaka was there to swat it down and just kind of crush her spirit. And I'm a big Serena Williams fan, but watching that match, I think truly made me, this is the beginning of me saying I am a Naomi Osaka fan. I was definitely somebody who appreciated the fact that she was the new kid on the block, and the fact that she can lay claim to the fact that she has already some majors under her belt. We were talking about this, Frank, just off air. When she won the 2018 U.S. Open and the 2019 Australian Open, her first two Grand Slam singles titles in back-to-back Grand Slam tournaments. She was the first player to accomplish that since Jennifer Capriati in 2001. And now Naomi Osaka can say that she's won the Australian Open and the U.S. Open twice on back-to-back occasions. She's done that feat twice, which is incredible. Naomi Osaka is a killer. And one other thing too, Naomi, we're used to watching tennis players grunt whenever they're returning and serving and whatever. Naomi was quiet the whole time. Yeah, that's dangerous. Like when we see people kind of act braggadocious or yell or bring attention to themselves, it's their way of creating attention and to try to make people kind of fear them. Those people who are just kind of quiet, some of the most dangerous people you could see. And Naomi Osaka, killer. She has that. And I'm telling you, man, like, I don't know if this is going to be the end of Serena at the end of this year. I'm not going to get into that speculation. But if it is, and it's on Naomi Osaka to kind of carry the torch, tennis is going to be fine. It's going to be in some good hands with Naomi Osaka. She's
only 23 years old.
Come on.
Crazy. And I think we touched on U.S. Open victory in 2018, 2019, followed by the Australian Open. Then 2020, she followed it up with a U.S. Open win. And then now in 2021, an Australian Open. So she, in the past 4 years, essentially in the 4 calendar years, she's had a Grand Slam singles victory, which is unreal.
Come on. We're talking about one of the best athletes right now. We're talking about one of the best tennis players in the world. And I'm not sure if you've seen her interviews. I don't know if you've kind of seen her availabilities and whatnot, but she just comes across as this charming person as well. I think earlier in her career, she was just a bit more awkward, but that's to be expected when you're a young tennis player who all of a sudden is thrusted into the lights. But now it's at a point where she's just charming. Did you see during the tournament, I think during a break in play, there was like a butterfly that was flying onto her racket and she was trying to just kind of guide it away.
Yeah.
And that video got retweeted. There was a video, Vivek Jacob, who I think does some work with CBC Sports out in Toronto. He put up that video and it got retweeted like so many times. And Naomi at one point, quote, retweeted it and was like, why is this video getting retweeted this many times? It's one of the cutest, most wholesome things you will ever see. And if you are not careful, she will slice you to death on a tennis court. Naomi Osaka is one of the coolest athletes to follow right now. And, I get it. We're in an age now where tennis player, actually just athletes in general, we have to be careful about who we stand and all that because we don't know what goes on in their personal lives. I want to stand Naomi Osaka for how great of a tennis player she is. And we got to give her flowers now. I know she's 23. I know she's got a long road ahead of her as a tennis player, but she is one of the coolest people to follow right now. She's got that star power.
Definitely. I'm glad we started off the top with this, Julian. It's a sport that we haven't covered as much so far during the show's short history, but definitely well earned and well deserved here for Naomi Osaka. What we've got next is some NHL news. We've got a lot of sports to get through. A packed show for everyone here, but
we're just going one after the other. We're just knocking them down.
Absolutely, I love it. And so this next up, we're gonna talk some NHL. Over the weekend, there were some outdoor games played, Julian. One in specific was between the Colorado Avalanche and was it the Vegas Knights?
The Vegas Golden Knights, yes.
On Lake Tahoe. And there was a huge delay because they decided to play the game under the sun. And I don't know if you're familiar with ice, Julian, but it doesn't do too well when under the sun. So obviously the ice started to break up. The referees, the players were falling and tripping over the holes in the ice. Anyways, the game eventually recontinued later in the night when they had fixed all the issues. But I mean, it was a beautiful scene, though. A gorgeous scenery, gorgeous vistas. And I mean, once again, during a pandemic, these players are living the life. Isn't it?
Yo, I have to say, though, man, that scenery, I mean, in theory, it should have been a pretty cool idea. But the execution, at least for the Golden Knights Avalanche game, a bit laughable, man. I mean, I was explaining this with my friend Justin Cuthbert at Yahoo Sports, just how, at least the NHL had a good idea in principle, and they tried to swing for something, and the execution, I guess, just kind of fell flat a little bit. But at least they were able to make it work with the Boston-Philadelphia game after. But man, you got to think though, man. Like middle of the day, sun beaming down on you, you playing on ice. That ain't smart. Like why not? What's wrong with having a game start at like 5:30 or 6:30 or 7:30 or whenever the sun is going to start to set, and then you just kind of see the mountains in the distance. It might even look even better as opposed to just having it high noon, right? But we got to think about these things. But at least Colorado and Vegas. Did you watch Colorado and Vegas when it got back around like midnight?
Not that late, but I saw some clips from it for sure.
I was up. I think the Montreal Canadiens had played that night. I think the Edmonton Oilers, I believe, which I think we might get to in a second. The Oilers were playing that night as well, and I was watching that game, and I kind of had the Avalanche game on in the background, just not even just to be like, man, I just want to be really invested in this game. It just becomes it's one of those things where the game is kind of separate from the story itself, right? This game I think was delayed by like 9 hours because of this weather delay, and now like past midnight or around midnight Eastern Standard Time, of course, we're watching hockey being played. Midnight hockey, is that a good idea for the memory for the vault?
I bet it brought those players. I bet it brought those players back to their youth. Playing on the outdoor rinks that late at night when they were just grinding those hours in, it probably felt good. And did you see the clip of Alex Pietrangelo being concerned when Nathan McKinnon was flying down the wing?
Yeah, I saw that. I also saw, I think at the end of the first period, I think he like lost an edge, or a first or second period where he lost an edge, and it's just him kind of like falling to his knees, and he's just kind of spinning and sliding towards the board for like a good couple strides. Like more like usually a guy falls to his knees, like he might just like stay down, or he'll try to just like limp to the bench. It was like the end of the period, and like Pietrangelo was just kind of spinning like a top, just like whatever. I lost an edge on my skate. Like who cares? Like I guess that ice maybe maybe it wasn't completely perfect even after that delay, but thank God that game was like Colorado Vegas and not like Florida Carolina. No disrespect to either of those teams. Actually, that might not even be a good example because the Florida Panthers are actually really good this year. They actually at least started off really well, and they're in a good position. Yeah. I was trying to think of two franchises that not
Detroit
a lot of markets would
Ottawa.
want to watch. Yeah, if it was Detroit, Ottawa for this season specifically, oh boy, yeah, you're having people drop off after that first period. Yeah. Oh no, Colorado, Vegas was at least worth watching for, and Boston, Philadelphia as well.
Speaking of another game that was played outdoors between the Philadelphia Flyers and the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins walked to the ice in complete 90s retro outfits, which, by the way, they look pretty great. I'm not going to lie. David Pastrnak, Patrice Bergeron, the whole gang were looking really good in those 90s, I don't even know what to call them. Just a complete
track
90s.
Suits.
Yeah, tracksuits. That's it. Multicolored tracksuits. Exactly. And they look great. The Boston Bruins on and off the ice look great as they beat the Flyers 7-3. They're the top team in the East Division. And this is something that I want to bring up here, is that the Boston Bruins, I think, are slowly turning into that Detroit team that's just so consistent all the time and making the playoffs all the time. They had a little bit of a hiccup from 2014 to 2016, and everyone was thinking, okay, now here's their time to rebuild and take a few years to really just, like any other natural rebuild will take a few years to get the team back to the top. But 2 years of no playoff action, and they were right back at it. This team has made the playoffs 11 times in the past 13 years. And it's not just making the playoffs, in the first round exit. They've had 3 Stanley Cup appearances during that stretch, with, of course, one of them being a victory over the Vancouver Canucks. If you're a person in a managerial position for any type of sports team, specifically hockey in this situation, you got to just look at what they're doing and try to emulate that, because they've just got the right recipe, the right formula here.
That's a really interesting take, because and I don't think you're necessarily wrong. And you bring up a pretty interesting point, because when we think of NHL teams that, their windows are open and teams that, other squads should emulate, we think of a Colorado, we think of a Tampa Bay, we think of a Vegas Golden Knights. We shouldn't forget about the Boston Bruins either. And even though they had those years where they missed the playoffs, they didn't have to completely sell their team and sell everyone off. It was more just like a reshuffling of the deck. It was more just like a reload, right? More than a rebuild or a reset, as some people would like to use that phrase, but more like just a reload. They're just like, all right, we just need to, kind of dust ourselves off and then just kind of get back right into it. And fine, they lost to Dano Chara, who was like a pillar on the defense, but
and Torrey
Krug. Team that's yes, but they still have Tuukka Rask net, and Yaroslav Halak has proven to be a really good battery mate for him. And then up at Charlie McAvoy is still a really great defenseman for that team. And then they have David Pastrnak, Patrice Bergeron, and Brad Marchand, which is arguably the best line in hockey. Like,
definitely.
You're going to, if you're the Boston Bruins, you have those 3 players in Pastrnak, Marchand, and Bergeron, you are competing for Stanley Cups, let alone make the playoffs. You should be able to compete for Stanley Cups almost every year. I don't remember last year before the pandemic hit, if memory serves, I think if they weren't the number 1 team, they had one of the best records in the Eastern Conference. I think they had the best record in the Eastern Conference before the pandemic hit. Yeah. And then they had the play-in, the first 2 games in, and because remember, there's the play-in round, and then there was like the top seeds had to play against each other in these round robin games to be reseeded. They didn't go so well, but the Boston Bruins have been a really good team for quite some time, and they're definitely in that upper echelon of NHL teams. And when you think about a Colorado, you think about a Tampa Bay, don't sleep on the Boston Bruins. Who knows? Maybe there's going to be a scenario in the playoffs this year where it's a Boston-Toronto, and then Toronto loses in Game 7 again to Boston, and then Boston goes to play like Vegas or Tampa Bay in the final.
That would be devastating for Toronto again. But speaking of Toronto, I'm glad you brought that up. Is that I want to mention this individual on the show, Austin Matthews. Just a phenom, a generational talent. If people don't believe he's a generational talent, I'll have to disagree with you. He's on pace for 56 goals in 55 games. What's the calendar year? How many games are they playing this year, Julian? Is it 55 or 57?
So here's the thing. It's 56 games that they're playing, but Austin Matthews missed 1 game due to an injury, so it's at 55 for him.
Okay. So anyways, he's on pace essentially for a goal per game, with missing one. He moves into the top 20 all-time scorers in Leafs history at the young age of 23 years old, which is unreal. And I mean, talk about another team who's just clicking on all fronts with a big three, with a top line that you could just rely on, similar to the Bruins with Marchand, Pastrnak, Bergeron have done it for years. Now it's the makings of maybe a 2.0 with Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, all those guys over in Toronto. It's a really scary thing to watch when you're, especially on the penalty kill.
And with Austin Matthews, isn't this the year where the Leafs said, hey, we don't want him to just be like, obviously, like this goal scorer, obviously, right? They want him to be this complete two-way player. They're making him do penalty kill. They're trying to get him to play more defense and stuff. That's been the Leafs' problem for the last few years, right? They've tried to be as best as try to get better on defense. So the fact that he's been able to accomplish this in the midst of the team trying to make him into more of a complete player for what they need is nothing short of astonishing. And Austin Matthews definitely at the forefront of the Hart Trophy race. Real
quick, more to that point, a small side note for people who probably watch a lot of Leafs games is in a game where the Leafs they essentially gave away the win against Montreal Canadiens, I think 2 weeks ago, roughly, where they had the lead for 1-0 lead the entire game, and then they gave up 2 goals and lost in the third period. We were talking about Austin Matthews being involved more in a more defensive role throughout the entirety of a game. During the last minute, Toronto's obviously playing their stars to try and get that tying goal to send it to overtime. Montreal could have iced the game. They had 2 or 3 chances to ice the game, and he blocked the shots that were going to go into the net. So this is just a little side note, but it shows that his effort is constant. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to get at. So yeah,
you're absolutely right, and it speaks to my point about him being more than just a forward you rely on for offense. You can put him in key situations where you need to defend your net and have him block shots if you really need him to. He's turning himself into a complete two-way player who I think is at the forefront for this Hart Trophy. And I'll mention this too. Austin Matthews is killing it. Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Mitch Marner, some four top scorers all coming in from the North Division. And I want to mention Connor McDavid here because I think Austin Matthews deserves a ton of attention. And I think what he's doing in this abbreviated season is something we should be following and something that could be really incredible. But Connor McDavid is also on pace to get like over 100 points in this shortened season as well. And he torched the Calgary Flames over the weekend with a hat trick and 2 assists. He got points in like the first, I think like the Edmonton Oilers, I think won that game like 7.
Oh, I know, Julian.
7 goals.
I've got him on fantasy. I got the first overall pick. I'm updated.
Tell you, bro, he was on the ice for his team's first 6 goals. And I think like the 6th goal, he didn't get a point on, but he was still there. I still can't get out of my mind. And I know he did this against Calgary last year, but he did it again this year. He's entering the zone with speed. He's turning his body, looking as if he's going to make the pass, and he fires a shot past the net, past the goalie, and his eyes don't even look at the net until that puck leaves his stick.
So the goalies essentially have no idea where that puck's going.
We're talking about, I mean, if Austin Matthews is a generational player, then Connor McDavid is an alien. Connor McDavid is out of this world as far as I'm concerned.
I think that's fair. Like I think it, in terms of normal, what we see on the ice level of production, Austin Matthews is. I mean, how could he not be? He's got to be argued as one. But Connor McDavid just is one echelon higher. Like he's an unbelievable talent. He really is. And
I talked about it with Yahoo Sports the other day, but right now, Matthews and McDavid, I think that should be the versus matchup we should be focusing on for the rest of this season. Yeah. Is Connor going to get to 100 points? Is Austin Matthews going to get to 50? Oh, that's insane. Over 50 goals in a 55-game season. Insane. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like how's that going to go? Every matchup that features those two players for the rest of the season, I don't know how many more times the Leafs and Oilers are going to play against each other for the rest of the year. That's must-watch TV.
Yeah.
That's appointment viewing. I'm stopping what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm stopping what I'm doing. I'm watching the game.
Absolutely. And especially, I wanted to mention this as well, at a time where the Edmonton Oilers seem to be playing as a more complete team. They've been criticized heavily. I mean, it seems like forever at this point, but as a team
Jesus.
as a team that's really hasn't been able to piece everything together. It's always just been a top heavy team with those first overall picks they've accumulated and nothing else to support it. Yes, you could still make the argument today that the goaltending isn't there, and it isn't. It is not. But
Not by comparison to other teams.
right, exactly. But I mean, the forwards, they've got more of a complete staff, if you will, up front in terms of forwards. And I mean, Darnell Nurse is what, Julian? He's leading all NHL defenders in goals this year. I mean, so he's stepped up massive. I think so.
Darnell Nurse?
Yeah.
I did not know that. What?
So
That's
anyway,
insane. I had no clue.
Let me confirm this. But it's just to say that, you know, I think all the pieces that those Edmonton Oilers have been hoping everything would come together more naturally and a bit quickly are finally starting to show their signs. So
I will add this though. I think with the way the Edmonton Oilers are built, this is just my view. I do not have a say in who gets the Hart Trophy because of how the Edmonton Oilers are built. Because of the fact that yes, they are top heavy. Sure, they have some pieces on defense. Their goaltending isn't necessarily all. I mean, Mike Smith was doing his best. Mikko Koskinen's been relied upon for most of this year. But I think when stacked up against other teams in the North Division, the Edmonton Oilers, especially with the Toronto Maple Leafs would definitely dust the Edmonton Oilers.
The Toronto Maple Leafs are the class of the North right now. It's undebatable.
Because of that, that's why I'm picking Connor. I think Connor McDavid has more. He has to put the team on his back, essentially. And fine, he has Leon Draisaitl by his side as well. But Connor McDavid does a lot of heavy lifting for that team. Austin Matthews is being asked to do a lot, but he has John Tavares to lighten up the load as well. Mitch Marner can also help. William Nylander gets a lot of flack, but he does a lot of good work for this team as well. This Toronto Maple Leafs team, I think, is obviously better than the Edmonton Oilers. And because of that, Connor McDavid for games against Calgary, for games against Vancouver, for games against Toronto and even a Montreal, Connor McDavid has to put in the work and he has to kind of carry the team at different points. So if it was up to me right now, I'm giving the Hart Trophy to Connor McDavid. And Connor McDavid, like I mentioned before, out of this world. He's that dude. I think if Austin Matthews is just is generational, Connor McDavid is that and then some.
Just to confirm here, Darnell Nurse is third in defenseman in terms of points and tied for first in defensive goals at 6 with Montreal's Jeff Petrie. So
that is insane.
Pretty unreal.
I did not realize that Darnell Nurse was doing that well statistically.
Yeah. 2 more notes to mention in terms of NHL talk. Julian, Sidney Crosby, of course, the great Sidney Crosby played his 1,000th game. You had it written here, a question. Where does he rank all time for you? I'm going to spin your own question to you.
Sure. For me, I have him in my top 5. I have Wayne, and then I have Mario, and then I have Gordie Howe, and then I think I'll put him at 4. I think with everything that he's done to this point in his career, I think over the last 15 years, he's been the league's best player. I think he's been one of their best faces. I think for Canadians, especially like us, we look at Sidney Crosby's work in the Olympics. We're coming up on the 11th year anniversary of the Golden Goal, which for older generations, they have Paul Henderson. For Canadians like us, we have Sidney Crosby's Golden Goal at the 2010 Olympic Games in BC. That was one of the most incredible things that I've ever seen. Right next to Marie-Philippe Poulin winning the game-winning goal, scoring the game-winning goal in overtime in 2014. Those 2 games, top-notch for me in terms of Hockey Canada Olympic content. But Sidney Crosby has proven to be an amazing NHL player who, you know, I sometimes forget this. Like when he came into the league, the mountain of expectations that were thrust upon him. Like we think about this for LeBron James when he had the Sports Illustrated cover and he was the king before he even got into the league. Sidney Crosby was called the next one before he got into the National Hockey League, before he had even, put a skate on NHL ice. Like people were describing him as the next great player, and he has lived up to that billing and then some. This is a guy who is without a doubt an instant future Hall of Famer, a 3-time Stanley Cup champion, one of the few NHLers who can say that they've won a consecutive Stanley Cups in the salary cap era. You know how hard it is to win back-to-back cups in the Stanley Cup era? And I know that's more of a team thing, but Sidney Crosby gets to say he led those teams to Stanley Cup championships. He's one of Canada's best hockey players, period. And when you consider the fact that, you can talk about how goaltenders were in the older eras. We know how much they train now. We know how much more improved the competition level has gotten up to in the NHL. You have to account for that for Sidney Crosby. And sure, maybe that muddies up some things when comparing era to era, but we like doing these things because it's fun. And because of that, Sidney Crosby is in my top 5 easily.
Nice. I enjoyed that take. So congrats to Sidney for playing his 1,000th game.
Whoa!
I don't got a list, Julian. I don't got a list.
You don't have me in your top 5?
No,
I don't need a list.
Absolutely, without a doubt, in my top 5. I just, the names that you mentioned, I it would take some studying to really rank them.
You're copping out. You're copping out.
Well, I'll give you a straight up answer. He's in my top 5 without a doubt. Maybe
you're copping out, Frank. You flipped the question on me because you knew you didn't have the names, and you knew that if you put yourself in it, you might have to worry about the words that you say. I'm confident in my beliefs.
You're right. I don't have the knowledge as you do, Julian. He's definitely without a doubt.
I didn't say that.
That's what you're saying.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying, like, you didn't think about it the way that I thought about it, and you didn't want to put yourself in the line of fire. But that's okay. I'm confident in my beliefs. I've watched what I say, but I'm confident in my beliefs. Sidney Crosby is a top 5 player.
Yeah.
Easily. Anyway.
Don't know if you saw Evgeny Malkin's celebratory video that he sent off the
I saw you shared it. You shared that on Twitter, yeah.
Anyways, it was a nice video. Obviously, Gino was wishing him, congratulating him on his 1,000th game and being a teammate for all these years. But the way he ended it was, and pass me puck. That's the way he ended it.
Great, man.
One last thing here for NHL news, real quick. For all of you who consume hockey news on a daily, weekly basis, and perhaps you're maybe even subscribed to The Athletic, I'd highly suggest and recommend that you go and read Dan Robson's story on Donald Brashear, a featured story about, of course, Donald Brashear playing over 1,000 games. Just one of those NHLers that you think of as one of those true fighters of the game, one of those true enforcers. But an enforcer who sustained a super long career across many different teams. And this story kind of just goes into his rise, his fall, his battle with drug abuse, alcoholism, and his road to recovery, and how he's slowly but surely finding his new piece. So anyways, a really good feature story by Dan Robson. I highly suggest that all of you go and listen to it. Next up, Julian, some NBA news. We mentioned a bit of the All-Star game on last week's episode, our favorite moments from years past. We start off with the NBA All-Star starters who were unveiled.
I still can't believe we're going to have an NBA All-Star game. I know I've made those intentions clear, but we have starters for the NBA All-Star game. Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, Nikola Jokic, Kawhi Leonard, and some guy named LeBron James on one team, Kyrie Irving, Bradley Beal, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, and some guy named Kevin Durant as captain of the other team. I don't see any particular surprises. I mean, it shouldn't really be a surprise considering how the voting works. I guess I'll watch it, even though I know the players are not necessarily really going to be into it. But I mean,
when is it?
March 7th. The weekend of March 7th is when the All-Star weekend will be taking place. Some other guys who got votes: Anthony Davis, Paul George, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, Christian Wood, who's actually been impressing in Houston this year, Rudy Gobert, and Carmelo Anthony. Small side note here. When I say Melo, Frank, who do you think of?
I saw your poll on Twitter, and it was 100% Carmelo Anthony. There's no, at least for me, when I think of Melo, I don't think of LaMelo Ball. I think of Carmelo Anthony, 100%.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just some people for some reason just think of LaMelo, or you have the older crowd who went in my mentions and said Eddie Mello. I have no clue who that is. Who else got votes on the guard side in the West? Devin Booker, John Morant, Chris Paul, who continues to kill it. I believe he just passed Oscar Robertson on the all-time assists list. He is sixth now, with about a little over 9,800. He probably should. I mean, at this rate by now, by the time you listen to this, he might already be in the 9,900 plateau. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of Toronto, C.J. McCollum, and DeMar DeRozan, who unfortunately lost his father a few days ago. Other guys like Jeremy Grant, Gordon Hayward, Domantas Sabonis, Julius Randle, who went off the other night, Bam Adebayo, who I ordered a Bam Adebayo jersey the other day.
Nice jersey, by the way, that you're wearing.
So this jersey I'm wearing now is a old school Vancouver Grizzlies Mike Bibby jersey. I've always seen these ones. These are real nice, so I'm just happy I got one. Trae Young's gotten votes, Russell Westbrook, Ben Simmons, Fred VanVleet, and Colin Sexton as well. Also getting votes to try to make the All-Star game, which will be taking place March 7th. No real surprises for me on that front. A lot of cool new names. Cool to see Colin Sexton get consideration. Cool to see Fred VanVleet get consideration as well. I know he went off the other night for the Toronto Raptors against the Philadelphia 76ers. It's only the first year of that new contract he's on, but he's starting to live up to that money. And the fact that the Raptors even beat the Philadelphia 76ers, who lead the Eastern Conference, is big for them. That's a team that started 2-8, and all of a sudden they're 500. They're a 500 team. You know, maybe we shouldn't have freaked out as much as we did, or at least I probably shouldn't have freaked out as much as I did. And DeMarcus Cousins also wanting out of Houston. So, of course, the rumor mill is still running rampant. He very much, I think his salary will also be guaranteed for the rest of this season. I can't imagine teams not trying not to call Houston for his services. I think when he's not going to be at the same level he'll ever be before he was severely injured, but I think he's definitely someone who can help out in the front court somewhere, and I think some teams might look into it. He's still a pretty good big man if you need one. So, yeah, I know we kind of ran through the NBA here, but maybe March 7th, one for the All-Star game at least. Like, that could provide some more fireworks. Obviously, we'll try to follow the league for more and more people who want us for more NBA content on this podcast.
Just to wrap up NBA stuff, NBA news, excuse me. The Minnesota Timberwolves, obviously not having a great season. I think they only have 7 wins so far. Before
we even get to that, I'm mad that I didn't even mention this. We might have seen the dunk of the year last week. Anthony Edwards destroyed Yuri Watanabe when the Timberwolves and the Toronto Raptors played against each other. How did I miss this? And it blows my mind. The dunk. You have to go watch the dunk. It's Anthony Edwards going along baseline and completely desecrating Watanabe. There were no survivors. It was just it's one of the best dunks you'll see. It's probably going to be the dunk of the year. But I think in that game, I think he only had like 7 points, and a few people were pointing it out on Twitter that Anthony Edwards only had 7 points in that game. I just need to say this. Shut up. Okay? We get it. All right? Anthony Edwards is a young rookie, has a good chance at being rookie of the year. He did not have a good game. He acknowledged it as such post-game. To the people on Twitter, to the people in NBA circles, just period, who want to be that guy who, kind of sucks up the fun for everybody. Why are you the way that you are? Why can't you just let us enjoy this poster dunk and not bring up the fact that he didn't score that many points? Let's just enjoy.
I bet he scored more points than all of those people chirping him.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
So anyways, that's going to tie into our hero and zero of the week, which we got coming up later in the show, at least mine.
Ooh.
But just before we wrap up NBA news, obviously the Minnesota Timberwolves not doing too well this year. They fire their head coach, Ryan Saunders. 34 years old. This guy is super young, Julian. His overall record with the team through 3 seasons was 43-94. Not good. not great. So he was fired Sunday. And the latest news is that the Timberwolves will be shortly announcing a new head coach hiring, and it's supposed to be Raptors assistant coach Chris Finch. Julian, your thoughts?
Here's
on
what
that?
I want to know. Like, how often do you hear, like, and I mean, it's not to say it's not happened before in different sports, but it's one thing if you get fired. It's a whole other thing when you immediately announce a replacement and you sign that dude to like a multi-year deal.
Quick
that means
turnaround.
You had that dude at the ready. You know what I'm saying? I mean, funny enough, the last time I could think of something like that happening as swiftly as it did, I think when Montreal Canadiens head coach Michel Therrien got fired.
I was just going to bring that up.
And Claude Julien was hired. He was promptly brought in, and I think they signed him like
couple days.
Not I don't think it was that long.
Yeah.
But that just, I mean, I don't want to say that's disrespectful, but that definitely was very swift on the part of the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
I don't know how good of an assistant Finch is for the Toronto Raptors. I've seen some people explain that he's helped their front court offense. He's helped their front court offense be good. But the Timberwolves, I mean, that's a team that, man, that's a team for years I thought was going to realize a whole bunch of potential. This is a team at one point that had Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins and remember they had Jimmy Butler at one point.
Yep.
And they had all these different pieces, and you're thinking, okay, maybe they could be good, but just the chemistry and the mindset of that organization just has not clicked. And there's a lot of unrealized potential for the Timberwolves. So it's a bit unfortunate that they're at that point. Also kind of bummed a bit to see Ryan Saunders, even though he was not a good coach, his record speaks for itself. It just doesn't seem as if he was the right man for the job in Minnesota. He was Flip Saunders' son, who many people in Minnesota know him as the legend that he was. He unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But it's a bit more, I guess, more on the sentimental side. It does kind of suck to see Ryan not end up being the guy in Minnesota.
Yeah. Moving along here in the sports news, MLB, obviously over last week, Fernando Tatis Jr. signed a mammoth deal with the San Diego Padres. We didn't cover this yet, did we, Julian? Right?
I don't
think we did.
I don't remember if we did, or I feel like we might have. I feel as if I freaked out about this to somebody, and I'm surprised. And if we did, we did.
Sorry about it.
But I don't think we did. But
14 years, $340 million. That's all we got to say.
What would you do? Like, if I'm a teammate of his and I hear about that, dinner's on this man. Like, I'm not paying for anything if I'm hanging out with Fernando
just
Tatis.
one dinner. Maybe the whole season's worth.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's dead fair. Like, I don't need to. I mean, fine, I got my own money, but like, I'm making a couple cool million, but $340 million, and you on the cover of MLB The Show.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I'm getting for Christmas. But that's really cool to see for a guy who should be considered one of the faces of Major League Baseball. And I hope if he's ever in a situation again where, oh, man, I still think about that. What was that incident? He hit that grand slam, and I think like his team was like down or whatever. Or like he celebrated some grand slam. And people got mad about him celebrating. Frankly, if I get it wrong, I got it wrong. But like, that still kind of boggles my mind that we still have people who just want to this goes back again to people just sucking up the fun for everybody. But let a guy like Fernando Tatis cash in literally and do some good for the sport, because it's just going to be more fun that way. So I'm happy to see that he's making some money. I just hope that for the case of the San Diego Padres, who hope to compete as soon as this year, that it doesn't turn to an albatross that keeps them from getting more players.
22 years old. Last season, he was ranked the fourth most sold jersey in the entire league. So clearly, I mean, obviously, he's the face of MLB The Show. He's kind of the face of MLB as it is as we see it today. So, anyways, congrats to Fernando on the massive deal. And look,
do you have a baseball jersey? How many baseball jerseys do you have? Do you have a Tatis jersey?
You know what's funny, Julian? I don't own many. I don't own jerseys. I don't
really. Okay,
it's weird. It's a weird one.
Future episode, we go in on our jersey collections, because I think
yours is gonna outshine mine.
We go in on jersey collections. We gotta do that. How do you not have jerseys, bruh?
I've got one. I've got my
Bengals jersey,
my AJ Green jersey, and that's it. That's
interesting.
I mean,
okay.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. I'm definitely getting a Joe Burrow jersey. That's for sure. Anyways,
Yeah.
this is a conversation for another episode. But anyways, don't own too many jerseys. I know it's kind of weird, right? Huge sports fan, no jerseys.
I mean, I don't have a lot either, but
normal.
I mean, I bought a lot of Manchester United kits during the break, and I bought this like last week. So like we can get into that in another episode.
It's 2 straight episodes you're sporting a jersey. Now the Vancouver Grizzlies. I mean, last week you had Inter Milan.
I'm trying to just rep more sports stuff, because it's a sports program.
It's good. In NFL news, last sports news before we get to our heroes and zero of the week. Obviously, we speculated this on our episode with Robert Mays and all the episodes leading up to this. Essentially, Carson Wentz traded to Indianapolis. I know this is old news, but still, for a conditional second and a third overall pick, which Julian, I don't know if you know the conditions, but it's essentially a given first round pick heading Philadelphia's way, which I think is pretty good value for a team like Philadelphia, who clearly just wanted to move on from Carson, move on from his contract, and move forward with Jalen Hurts. He only has to play 75% of his snaps throughout next season, or play 70 and have the team make the playoffs. So it looks pretty good. They obviously just have to hope that he doesn't get hurt, and they should have what would everyone would assume to be a late first round pick, but it's a first round pick. It's the NFL. All these players turn into big, can turn into huge pillars on any team, especially in the first round. So that's the news there. Do you have any comments on that? It's a bit of old news. Just wanted to bring it up.
I thought him going to Indianapolis would have been a good idea because him getting to play with Frank Reich, who saw some of his better games, obviously would be a pretty good fit. So I'm very anxious to see what those two together are going to look like in Indianapolis. So,
look, I mean, he's heading into a great situation. Obviously, has experience with Coach Reich, but also maybe we won't have to see him be as mobile as we have in the past, which, by the way, has led to a few injuries. Obviously, we remember that potential. I don't know if it was an actual touchdown. Anyways, he was running to the goal line where he tore his ACL against the LA Rams. And I mean, he's always known for his mobility, sneakiness, moving out of the pocket. But with a team like Indianapolis, I mean, they've got one of the best O-lines in the league. They've got a really, really strong run game. I don't know if Marlon Mack's going to be returning, because they've got really 3 running backs that they can essentially use. And Marlon Mack, who got hurt last year, and Naheem Hines, and of course Jonathan Taylor, the rookie that they invested in highly last year's draft. So, I mean, I think I still want to see more from them from a receiver standpoint. They don't have too many huge names. They drafted Michael Pittman. T.Y. Hilton's a free agent. Don't know if he's going to be re-signing. That's going to be interesting. I really want to see how he blends and how they maybe replenish the wide receiver position. But hey, good on Wentz. Good for both teams. I think it could be a good move for both. And one last note here for NFL news. Last week we were hit with this very, very sad and unfortunate news of the passing of Vincent Jackson, longtime NFL. I mean, he was an all-star. He was really, really good. He had some incredible years in both touchdown production and yardage. And one of those bigger wide receivers who Phillip Rivers just had so much confidence checking the ball up there and him coming down with it. He was obviously found dead in a hotel in Florida, or a hotel, I believe. Anyways, the latest news from the story is that his brain is being donated to Boston University's CTE Center in an effort to learn more about the cause of his death. His family had reported that he was like a missing persons case because they hadn't heard from him for a while, and just for how should I put it here? I guess the county sheriff department issued I'm tripping on my words here. Excuse me, a welfare checkup to see if they can, track him at all. And they did. And this was issued on February 12th. And then what's weird in this story is that the hotel staff actually went to his room twice to check up on him, but they had just seen him crouched on his chair and they figured he was sleeping. So they saw him on numerous occasions. So the news that's breaking now is that he could have very well been passed away a few days before they actually reported him, reporting his passing. So anyways, a really tragic story. Vincent Jackson, longtime NFLer who just was unfortunately, found dead in a hotel in Florida. So anyways, our condolences to his family, and it's just one of those stories, man. It's the sad. It's honestly reading this. It's tough to say it, but reading this story is just like, I'm happy to see that Donald Bashir is finding peace now in life, because there was some parallels there, man. Like it's these players find a dark place, and sometimes they don't come out of it. So yeah, that's my take on it.
The one last thing I'll just say on that, because I think you explained it as best as you could. A lot of people like to look at athletes and they like to bring up the fact that they have all this money and have all this attention, and they just assume that their lives are just sparkling and way better than the common man. This is just a sign, not just a sign, but you never really know what a person's going through. And that goes for an athlete, that goes for everyday people. So be careful about that with a person. And for someone like Vincent Jackson, who was gone from the league, but still very much had a lot of life to live, and a lot of people, I'm sure, still cared for that person. He served as a mentor to Mike Evans, who still plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's a very tragic story for everyone involved, and it's really sad. I'm really sad for him. Not to kind of end the NFL news on a more of a damper note, but I am glad that we did address this in some way. And, it just goes to show you, no one, just, you never know what anyone's going through. And I mean, I don't know everything about the situation with Vincent, but I would hope that, his family is able to just take some comfort and solace in whatever little joys they can find after this, because it is very much a sad story.
Turning to a bit more positive news here to end off the episode, our weekly heroes and zeros of the week. Julian, I think I began last week, so you could take it off. Who you can start it off for us? Who's your hero or zero, whichever you prefer to start with? Don't mind.
So I think so. Normally, this doesn't happen where I mention somebody who we spoke about in the episode as a hero, but I think Naomi Osaka deserves to be this week's hero because of her win at the Australian Open, her fourth major title. And it'd be really fun to see if she actually completes the full on Grand Slam where she wins all the majors in a year. We'll have to see about that. Obviously, Naomi, I don't know if Naomi's at that point just yet where she's dominating every major and winning, but that would be really awesome to see. Why not? Maybe this year could be the year, maybe not. I will make her the hero for me this week, and I'll make my loser. There's a fashion crime I need to address on this show. And it's a damn shame that not enough people are bringing it up. And I've had enough. I don't understand what the Colorado Avalanche of the National Hockey League are doing with their jerseys. They have the beautiful white and maroon color, but as opposed to the maroon pants, they're wearing these light blue ones that don't match. The Colorado Avalanche, I love that franchise. It's weird to say I love, because I'll say there are teams that I definitely, even if I'm not full on fans of, I'm all about their history. Patrick Roy, one of the greatest goaltenders of all time, played there, so I'm a big Patrick Roy fan. So, happy about that. Joe Sakic, who was one of my first players who I enjoyed watching growing up, that also plays into it too. Also, if you want to go back to one of the greatest cup raises in NHL history, you go back to Raymond Bourque winning in 2001, his first and only Stanley Cup, after spending all those years with the Boston Bruins. And you just hear Gary Thorne's call over it, and that is just going to send you chills down your spine. So I have a weird affinity for the Colorado Avalanche franchise. So I don't want to see them fail, and I don't want to see them fail from a fashion standpoint. Also, I'm just going to throw this out here to the Vegas Golden Knights as well. The Golden Helmets, I like the idea. Keep it for one player. Keep it for your leading scorer. Don't make everyone wear it because it just looks as if you have a whole bunch of guys on the ice wearing these shiny head tops. Like what are you doing? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. They already messed up with the reverse retro jerseys. You don't have to do it with your helmets.
That's an interesting one. Give the one shiny gold helmet to their best player, or
that's what they do in Europe.
It's kind of like the captain's band.
That's what they do they do it in Sweden, I think.
I had no clue.
Yeah, they do. So like it's not a totally foreign concept, but like
Okay.
don't make everyone wear a gold shiny helmet. That doesn't
Yeah.
make them special.
Yeah. A lot of glare gets the eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. So if it's in the sun,
Oh man, yeah, that thing will
that
help
would be
melt the
bad.
ice.
Oof. Your
But
heroes and zeros.
yeah, my heroes and zeros this week. My hero, actually, no, I'll start with my zero because
Mhm.
I mentioned it earlier that I'll get into this when you spoke about the keyboard trolls going off on Anthony Edwards, right? Not scoring points. It's very easy to say that when you're just watching the sport and these athletes. And this weekend, a video surfaced of at I believe an NFL camp of some sort where this young, seemingly maybe 12 or teenaged kid was really going at Cam Newton, calling him trash, telling him he's still unsigned and whatnot. I mean, hey, people can say whatever they want about Cam, but to have it come from a kid that's like, someone who you think would look up to people like this. And I mean, the guy's gone to a Super Bowl. He's been an MVP. He was a first overall draft pick. I mean, you got to put a bit more respect on that name just from a, what I'm trying to say here is from when you meet him in person. I mean, it takes a bold person to say that type of stuff in person. And man, this kid was just going off on Cam Newton. So I didn't find that to be the classiest, and you'd figure there'd be a bit more respect shown there. So there wasn't. That's my zero of the week. My hero though is Deshaun Watson, giving back to his hometown of Gainesville, Georgia. His foundation, the Deshaun Watson Foundation, helped feed over 10,000 people over the weekend back in Gainesville, Georgia. So, it could be very easy for athletes who are really just shoved into the spotlight, especially like him in this moment where he's going through a massive career transition, what seemingly in the coming weeks, months, who knows when he'll be traded. And it could be very easy for someone to just forget about everything else, and just narrow in and focus on themselves and their own issues and whatever. But Deshaun Watson seems to have a real good strong head on his shoulders and taking care of people who are don't have it as good as him. Simply put, don't have it as good as many people. So good on him to help and give back to the community and paying it forward.
Can I go back to your zero for a second? I just
Sure.
want to add my own 2 cents here. I've seen some people go on and after the video surfaced of Cam Newton going back and forth with that kid, and I've seen a few people. Well, the kid, I don't know if you saw, he since apologized. He put out like a statement online,
Okay.
just apologizing for what he did. And one person in particular, Clinton Yates, who works at the ESPN, does columns for the Undefeated. He quote tweeted where he posted the statement of the kid's apology, and he wrote, "I hope you olds are happy now." He means like old heads. It really sucks that y'all put this kid through all this. And there may be people who look at this kid and they're like, all right, well, he did wrong, but he didn't need to be, kind of bullied online for any of the stuff that he did. I don't think he should be bullied online, but I definitely think he should get some kind of discipline in some way, right? Like there's a reason why Cam Newton was calling out for his dad. That was such a bold thing for that kid to do. Why would he even want to do that? Why is he at his camp and he's looking to call him a free agent? That doesn't make any sense. I just think that's just poor form on the kid's part. And I think I don't advocate for anyone bullying him online, but I definitely, him having to apologize for this, like that's the least he could do. I mean,
Yeah.
not like, full on, like, grovel and beg or whatever, but like, I just think that's just impolite for him to do. Like, what's the point of him doing that? That's just a stupid thing for him to do.
And to add on to that, it's definitely going to be a learning lesson. And we don't know. These kids are young, right? I remember doing stupid stuff at whatever, how he looks to be 12, 13. And it could have been, for all we know, a dare or something, just, kids to get a laugh out of one. But it's still, you shouldn't be doing that.
If I dare you to jump off a bridge, you ain't going to do it.
Exactly. So
we're grown, but like still.
Anyway. If hopefully what he can take away from it is a learning lesson at the end of the day. So, and I felt like Cam Newton handled that pretty well himself too. So at least credit to him. Yeah, that's all. That is all for us. We kept it under an hour, Julian. Pretty tight, pretty clean. It's gonna run a bit longer than an hour, but
That's how it is. Like, we just we did it. We kept it under an hour.
Yeah, we did it.
I'm happy we got through the gauntlet of all the sports we need to get through for this week's show. If you enjoyed us, please subscribe to our show wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Twitter as well at the WaterBoys WM, the WaterBoys _podcast on Instagram as well, so you can see some extra clips and extra fun stuff. And we'll be sharing that throughout the week. Tune in to us next time where we get to do it all again. One more time. This is just my subtle way of honoring Daft Punk, who broke up after 28 years this week. I'm heartbroken over that. So yeah, check us out. Subscribe to us if you haven't already. Subscribe to Watch Mojo, of course, as well. That's the parent company. Those are the people who pay us as well. So, thanks for paying us, and thanks for being great, Watch Mojo. We really appreciate you guys. For Frank, I'm J-Mac. I haven't used my nickname on the show, actually.
You have not.
Wow.
I like it, though.
Jeez.
Go for it.
Jeez. All right, cool. I don't normally self-reference myself with my nickname. Okay. All right. I wonder if I like that. For Frank, I'm J-Mac. Tune in next week for another great edition of the WaterBoys podcast.